Gotta get off that roof, Nate. Don't care how you do it, just do it.
Do not judge me. Okay, so I'm not really a person that I would consider decisive in that I really struggle to make a single definite decision or conclusion to one thing. When faced with a problem, I feel like the normal depiction is somebody who like curls into a ball and they get frightened and they run away from trying by any means necessary. Look, okay, everybody does that to some extent, let's just be honest here, but I feel like the avoidance comes in more ways than just, oh yeah, I'm gonna run away. In my case, I don't exactly run away, but I actually try too hard to solve it, at least most of the time, okay? Like I said, everybody kind of tries to run away sometimes. But you see, I never actually realized that until my first year of college, which has just ended. That's why I'm moving into a new place and my backpack just fell over. That Red Bull is gonna like genuinely explode when I open it. I like literally just moved into my apartment today. I'm at the park because I have no internet at the house right now. oh. This is crazy. This is so good. And I never found a good way to compile like these thoughts, like this realization, until I read this panel in a very good manga that you probably might know about, but if you don't, it's called Berserk. I haven't actually talked about like Berserk or any of the other manga that I've been reading. And I've been reading it slowly over the past couple years, so I feel like I've kind of had a bit of time to digest it pretty well. So I'm going to explain this realization I had with two examples. One that's a bit more relatable to everybody, I feel, especially y'all who read like books or manga or something like that, and another one that is it's kind of obscure. It's only really relatable to those probably like in STEM majors or something like that. Okay, so let's talk about the whole reason that I got to this point in the first place, which is reading Berserk. I love pinning my ideas, my thoughts, and probably my entire personality onto the books and other media that I read. The main character, Guts, is a person who always puts his words into action. If he says he's going to do something, he's going to do it, regardless of what happens or what circumstances decide to get in his way and mess everything up. And frankly, that's probably what all these insane characters and stories have in common. Regardless of their power or strength, they'll commit all the way. But also, not to talk with food in my mouth, but I really need to get that point off, is that they're not always like thinkers, I would not consider Guts to be a very hard thinker. I think that he's intelligent, but I don't think he really thinks things through in terms of his actions all the time. He's occasionally a bit too eager to make an action. A core part of the story is that he swings his sword around in a blind rage without thinking about those that he loves and himself. He doesn't consider how his excessive anger and his revenge can actually negatively impact so many different things. In other words, there's a healthy balance between being a rash, swinging sword lunatic and just straight up an anti-overthinker, and I feel that's where I fall on the spectrum most of the time. Okay, but Guts is not a lunatic though. That's kind of like an overstatement, sorry. Not to mention he's trying to change, and it's probably good that we really recognize that in the story, that he changes over time. A core part is how he learns. This ability works part of the time for him, but the overall idea just comes with a bit more baggage than just sit down and do it. Just do something. Just do an action. Swing your sword. There's a bit of thought and a bit of grace that comes with it. However performative that may sound. My favorite book, manga, piece of tree, cut off tree, with ink printed on it, is Vagabond by far. And I feel that a lot of where the main character in that kind of shines is that Musashi, the main character, kind of perfects his craft by infusing both the actual action, oh yeah, I'm just gonna swing my sword around, which similar to Guts, he was the same way. He would just swing his sword around in blind rage without really thinking. And he also infuses a lot of thought, a lot of philosophy, a lot of he just thinks before he swings his sword. He incorporates that into his fighting style, and I feel let's just say not even fighting style or swing. I just feel his movements is a more accurate term, because that's what they basically become. They become more than just swinging and fighting. This is also not on the script, but I feel there's another character in Vagabond that I really want to mention, and his name is Madahachi. He's impulsive, and all of these really cool main characters are impulsive, but the difference is that they kind of take that impulsiveness and apply it in a way that they pick and choose where they use their impulsiveness. Some people are like this Madahachi guy who's just impulsive, just does not like have any like form of discipline when it comes to actually like honing like their human flaws. Like that's worse. That's bad. Like that's really bad. So again, it reinforces the idea. Let me hold the Red Bull so I can be performative, because I really want to bring up another example, and that is called a state machine. Okay, so this one probably comes out of left field, and you're probably wondering, oh yeah, how do we go from like fictional stories with like cool pictures and guys like swinging massive swords and beating crazy super powered people? Okay, well, some stories are like that, to having a theoretical like computer science slash like probably math topic. Actually, I think it's a math concept, but like I don't like hard math, so we're just not going to do that. We're looking at this as purely a conceptual topic because ultimately the way a computer works is not so different from our decision-making process. Hear me out. I'm not saying that we're like AI. I'm not going to pressure you into like buying stock in an AI company. Just listen, okay? It's not that much different as long as the problem is one that can be solved mostly by logic. I mean, I feel like a lot of times like, oh yeah, what career should I do? A lot of times there is kind of an emotional part into that, but let's just say most day-to-day decisions, probably require mostly of a logical framework. Let me emphasize that this video is all about breaking through the mental wall of doing things that we must or truly want to do. It's kind of just like a flowchart, essentially. We start at one state, one way of being, and depending on what decision we input, we can move on to a different state of being. This is very oversimplified. Once we add in the actual like computer part of things, we get different types of state machines and diagrams, and we eventually get like coding, games, and other cool stuff through the way of abstraction. But that isn't the point of this video. Now here's the thing though, here's why I'm using this over just like some regular flowchart that you might see. Often a regular flowchart is based upon the literal outputs and results of things that we do. The state machine, on the other hand, is solely based on our internal decision-making process, i.e., it's simply the computer's way of determining what to do rather than determining what comes out of it. If we embed a computer of some sort in your car that regulates when it turns off at a stop to save gas or something like that, it isn't the computer itself causing the gas to just stop. Like, it's not gonna like get out of your car and like stop the gas itself, like, is it? No, it's simply a way of determining what we are going to do. The computer is just a control system. That's the thing that I, myself, and I feel many other people who suffer from the same problem as me are missing. We don't have complete control over the outputs. We don't understand that. Often we don't have any control over the outputs. Time and time again, okay, I found myself trying to solve a problem, do a bunch of different simulations in my head, trying to get the very best outcome if possible. But the problem is that you cannot focus on the outcome. If you want the best possible outcome, ironically, you cannot focus on the outcome. That cannot be your sole focus, okay? Like, you can want, like, a good outcome, but you can't just have your entire mind set upon that without thinking about how you're actually going to get there in the first place, without just leaving that out to the side. You can't do that. It doesn't work. And it took me this long. It took me this long to understand this. Like, it actually makes me mad. Yo, like, you know what I hate, bro? I hate when, like, tomatoes have, like, skin like this. Like, it's not even bad. I'm sure it's good for you. But it just makes me mad. Like, how am I supposed to eat this? Like, you often hear this when we're choosing careers or trying to make some specific goal happen. But I think it goes way deeper. I think it's literally a problem in the way that we live life, and it holds us back. We always hear about the dangers of being too rash and, being too impulsive, but, we never hear about the danger of being too cautious. The time that we spend trying to control the outcome can be spent doing things, like actually like being out there in the world and doing stuff. And ironically, while you can never achieve the ideal outcome that perfectionism cons you into thinking that you can get, the act of trying something and failing at it, or even finding out that it just wasn't for you in the first place, will get you much closer to the best outcome than thinking it over a billion times over. It just may not seem like it in the short term. This whole thing, which we think, okay, like, which I thought I was doing good long-term thinking. I thought I was like looking out for myself by doing this, and I guess I was. But ironically, this is actually like short-sighted thinking. And if I just did something, that would be way better for the long term. Like, you literally just like have to just choose something to do at a certain point. You can want something to happen, but you can't expect it to happen if you do X and Y and Z. We, as like randoms in this floating rock of a, like video game lobby type world in space, are unfortunately not entitled to such a universal privilege. And that is perfectly okay. In fact, it's more fun that way. Like, it makes winning or finding the right fit actually a bit sweeter. I exhibited this attachment to the outcome and overthinking through everything I did, whether it was starting my workout routine or studying in school or like making art and music or like even on this very channel, I exhibited this same exact attachment to the outcome, and it hurt me so bad. Now, I don't post often on this channel for like just a variety of reasons, honestly, but I have plenty of video ideas, like and actual like recorded videos that just never came out, okay? Because I was too attached to trying to make them perfect for some like arbitrary outcome. I realized that so many things in my life didn't work out because I just spent too much time trying to find out how to make them perfect rather than actually attending to them. Even Guts and Berserk. A lot of the problems that he had was because he, in the middle of the story, he kind of like ran off and left behind some of his comrades. So he thought he was doing the right thing by going on trying to hunt the person that hurt them very badly, but the truth is that he may have been better off just being there and attending to what was there, rather than having his mind way off in space. Now, I haven't finished the story, and I'm not sure where exactly this plot line goes because it's kind of like towards the middle of the story, and trust me, it's not really a spoiler. Like, you kind of build up to that point. Just simplify the way you approach things. That's all you've got to do. A state machine is an example that shows the act of making something happen isn't about predicting the outcome. That's not how it works. This is why I don't go outside anymore. But it's about getting yourself to a point of being able to execute the things that are needed to be done. And if the correct outcome happens, great, okay, cool, you got what you wanted. And if it doesn't, then cool, okay, we just change things and we find a way to make it happen, or we just find something, we just go along with the flow. And if the correct outcome happens, great, then you got what you want, and you're good. And if it doesn't happen, then it doesn't. That's really it. You can try again, or you can just go along the path. Maybe it pivoted you somewhere else, or maybe you just decide that's just not a route that you want to go down. A search engine like Google, for one last example, doesn't magically just find the right answer, but it focuses on the action of looking for it. And by just focusing on looking as much as possible rather than like trying to like pinpoint some sort of source, I just like broadly just searches the internet through some crazy amount of like looping and searching the entire internet in a nanosecond. It will get your result. If it just stopped looping through the code to like that enables it to search, to like think over the very best way of finding the answer, then it would be doing that for about 1 billion years and it would never find what you need, and Google wouldn't exist. Chances are whatever you're thinking of doing is like good enough, so okay, just do it anyway. Good enough is good enough, and good enough, I believe, is the key to getting through a rut. You might not feel like it's good enough, but chances are it probably is. That might be a blanket statement, but I feel that's probably like 95% of instances. For somebody who's a known overthinker, at least. Hold on, my iPad's about to die. Oh no. Oh, holy cell. Oh, never mind. Okay, all right. My iPad almost just died, which has my script, but luckily I've got a battery on. And it doesn't have a crazy amount of battery, but it's good enough. I don't need a perfect amount of battery. Oh no, I didn't charge my iPad. No, this is good enough on its own. It's at 3% now. So here's the bottom line, right? I didn't solve this by like working harder. I simply had to go with the flow. And for me to do that, I had to be sure. I had to be literal in everything that I did. And I had to relinquish my desire to control the outcome. And I had to stick to that train of thought. But notice in there, it doesn't require me to be perfect or to have some certain outcome. It just requires me to do this thing. I think many of us can be avoidant in ways that we don't realize, and for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's stereotypical sloth or laziness that holds us back. We just don't feel like doing something. And this is often the case, but I'd wager, and most times it isn't. That's just a rehash of what we said in the beginning. Honestly, I feel like most of the time I see this is just because of general mental health issues, but in the cases where it isn't, it comes down to the desire to be perfect and to not mess up in what you do, which is probably still a mental health issue, but I don't know, this is why I'm not in medical school. The difference I find in my thoughts whenever I feel lazy versus whenever I'm, having analysis paralysis is that the former is when you simply do not want to make a decision because you just don't want to make a decision. What I spoke about here is analysis paralysis, which is also known as perfectionism. Not to say that I don't sometimes feel lazy. Like I said, everybody feels lazy sometimes, whether they want to admit it or not. We're that way because we're living. We're human beings and not computers who just execute instructions line by line. Okay, I'm sure even David Goggins sometimes feels like he just wants to lay in bed sometimes. Does he do it? Probably not gonna lie. But I mean, occasionally, maybe like once a year, he'll just lay down in the bed for like 30 minutes and be like, yeah, this is it. All right. Now it's like 3 o'clock in the morning. We go back and go run like 7 miles through a desert or something like that. I think like general like just like sloth and just like the not wanting to do something kind of requires a different set of tools and thoughts to get past. Which I'm not gonna lie, I don't really know the answer to that one, but somebody else on YouTube probably does. Above all, just understand that it is you, your internal mindsets and decisions, and your actions themselves that matter, not the potential outcomes that you may get or are trying to get. Just do. And don't worry about whether or not your actions are going to directly get what you want. If you think like that, then you're just going to be there forever optimizing for years on end. Just do what feels right. And if it clearly isn't working or it's failed in somehow or some manner, then pivot it slightly and fix a flaw that you can find and just see if it works then. And if it doesn't, rinse and repeat. That's all. See. Look at this part. Hold on. Can you see it? Yeah. Look at this part. Hold on. Can you see it?